Hello folks, Jason Chrisman, JC's Bees, your Central Ohio beekeeper. Boy, it's been a crazy week. We've had some beautiful weather, which has been great to get things done outside for the bees. The problem is I haven't had much time to attend the bees this week. You see, on our leased farm with our cattle, this week we banded the bull calves, and that took some preparing to do. Each day I made steps to get the cows closer to our sorting area, and once the time came that they were in the sorting area, then I had to sort out the bull calves. And then the following day we took the day and set up our new hedge squeeze chute and banded the bull calves. So it's been a crazy week working the cattle, but I got some pointers I want to share with you this week on your bees, getting them ready for spring. You know, it's starting to feel like spring is in the air here. And I had a follower ask me a couple of weeks ago, he said, this is I can't remember if he said it was his first or second year keeping bees, but anyway, he wanted to know what kind of plants should he be looking for his bees in his area. So I wanted to throw out a few different plant names for you to look up. And then I want to give you a resource to be able to find what your bees are working. So the very first thing that I notice my bees working is the maple trees. Right now, a lot of people have their maple trees tapped. So you're going to see buckets or bags hanging on trees to collect sap for the maple syrup. So that tells you, the ones of you that don't know what maple trees look like, which trees are maple. So if you can find some of those trees that are tapped and get permission to look at them a little closer, you may look up and notice that the tops of the trees are starting to turn red, just on the very tips of the branches. And what that is, those are the buds on the maple trees starting to open. You can also check this by looking at the entrance of your hives when your bees are flying and looking for a pale yellow pollen. So look for the pale yellow pollen, look for the red tips on the maple trees. So that's my very first source. And I'd have to say my second source is probably my weeping willow that I have out here in the yard. So check your willows and your maple trees for any kind of growth or activity. Now, I believe the maple pollen is a pale green, but I may be wrong. If I am wrong, maybe somebody can correct me down below. And that brings me to my next point. A lot of people think that flowers and plants are the main source for bees in spring, and that's not necessarily true. Trees provide a huge resource for our bees, and we're always looking down at the flowers for bees when we should be probably looking up at the treetops to see where our bees are. And if you think about it, how many plants or flowers will it take to provide the resources that a full-grown mature tree can provide? So it's not necessarily a bad thing if you don't have flowers in your area and you have more trees, because trees could provide way more resources than a tiny little flower bed of flowers. Now, if you've got acres of buckwheat or acres of canola or something like that growing, then yeah, flowers are definitely going to give you a nice resource for your bees. But if you've only got 1 or 2 acres or a small flower bed of plants, then maybe you ought to be excited about the trees in your area. So don't give up on the trees. They are a huge resource for our bees. The first plant that I notice in my area, now I will get those crazy sporadic dandelions that pop up early, but I know they're early. They usually come within the next 3 weeks. I'll start to see the first couple dandelions, but it's usually the end of April, beginning of May before I start to see them spread out widespread and pop up everywhere. The first true plant that I see pop up that the bees really like is purple dead nettles. And if you're not familiar with it, I'm going to share a picture here with you. So you can go out and look for this purple dead nettles. And I'm going to tell you where I notice it a lot. I notice it in fields where farmers plant their crops, but they haven't broken the soil yet in early spring. You'll look across the field and you'll notice a purple tint, and that is the purple dead nettle. So if you live in a farm area where they plant a lot of crops and they haven't broken soil yet, look across those fields, look for that purple tint, and see if maybe you can notice some purple dead nettle in your area. Now the pollen coming from the purple dead nettle is red. It's the same color as henbit, and a lot of people get henbit and purple dead nettle confused. So don't be one of them people. Usually dead nettle is your early spring bloom, and henbit usually blooms more towards June. So don't get the two plants confused, because they do look a lot alike, and the pollen source, or the pollen, is the same color. So what I want to do now is I want to share a link down in my video description that's going to take you over to Wikipedia, where they have a very, very handy pollinator chart. So what you do basically is you look at this chart, or first you would start at your hives. You would watch the color of the pollen coming in on the bees' legs. Make a note what colors you see. Then go back in and pull up this chart, or use your phone and pull up the chart right in the bee yard. And this chart you're going to use, and you're going to look down through the different colors, and you're going to see which color best matches what the bees are bringing in. And then from there you're going to scroll over and figure out what that plant source is. So this is a very, very handy chart, especially for you new beekeepers that are wondering, what are my bees working? I can't see them anywhere in my yard. I don't see them anywhere in the neighborhood, but somehow they're bringing back pollen. So use this chart, and it is very handy. I've used it my first few years, but now for the most part I know from using the chart what those sources are. So it can be very handy, especially for you beginners. So I hope that's helpful. Those are the first few sources that I see here in my area, and what I'll try to do each video is to share different things that are blooming or are about to bloom. That way maybe I can help some of you new beekeepers out. Okay, so now to prepare our bees for spring. Right now is a great source to set out some dry pollen subs somewhere. A lot of people will use an empty hive box, and they'll lay some newspaper or something in the bottom, and then they'll pour in some dry pollen sub, and that works really well. But then there's some people that'll take like a 4-inch piece of PVC about a foot long. They'll put a cap on one end, and they'll put their pollen sub in there, and then they'll put a hanger on it, usually a rope or a chain of some sort, and they'll hang it from a tree branch close to the bee yard, and the bees will work the pollen sub in there too. There's many great ideas for simple DIY do-it-yourself pollen sub feeders, and I'm gonna leave a link up here in the corner. I always get confused. I think it's this corner, but it may be this corner. Just check both of them. Check both of them, and then you'll know you found it. I'll leave a link up there for a video I did a few years ago on different ideas for dry pollen sub feeders. So maybe that will be handy to you. At this time, you can still be providing the pollen patties or sections of pollen patties in the hives. Just take my advice from last week and don't overfeed the pollen patty. Don't be given full chunks unless your colony is super strong, just because of the concerns of small hive beetles. Personally, for myself, I'm not going to go breaking boxes apart and making full inspections just yet. I realize it's March. We've had a beautiful week of weather, but I don't really think winter is done. I think a lot of people are holding their fingers and hoping it's done, but I'm not going to be surprised if we get another cold snap and some more snow. So for that reason, I don't want to break the propolis seal between the boxes and start breaking frames apart. So I'm going to hold out a little bit longer. I mean, I can see my bees are obviously doing fine. They're eating the pollen patties. They're flying every day. They don't need me going in there breaking boxes apart just yet. So for myself, I'm going to hold out a little bit longer, say maybe another month, another 3 weeks, something like that. And then I'll go in for my first inspection. So I don't want to get in too big of a hurry, start breaking boxes apart, it get cold again, not to mention all the rain that we've got coming for spring. I don't really want all that moisture running in between the boxes or whatever may happen. So just a little tidbit there, I'm going to hold off on breaking my boxes apart, and I'll keep feeding and supplementing the pollen patties from the top, the dry pollen stuff out in the bee yard and my feeders, and that's how I will roll for the next 3 weeks or so. The other thing I'd like to talk about is live chats. I've had a lot of requests to hop on live chats with the stream team here recently, and a lot of my followers are wondering why I am not getting on there. Well, here's the reason. I know you see my microphone set up right here, and you think, well, it looks like he's got the setup, why ain't he coming on? Well, the reason is I haven't taken time to set my GoPro up to use as a webcam. So I don't have a camera set up, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bit nervous about going on live streams. I don't know what it is about live streaming that makes me a bit nervous. Oops, kicked the camera stand. But I am a bit. I don't know, there's something about going through my videos and being able to edit what I say before it goes out public to you guys that makes it a little bit easier to do than actually going live. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's because I have a problem of tripping on my words sometimes and I get ahead of myself. So I don't know, there's a lot of nerves there, but I am going to eventually get my camera set up, and I'm going to do some live videos starting out for my patrons over on my Patreon page. And that's where I'll start to break the ice and get more comfortable with going live. And then from there, eventually, Brian, Castle Hives, he's been on me. I will be ready to hop on with the stream team. Right now, I'm just not set up, and I do have a few butterflies in my stomach. I won't lie to you. I don't have anything to hide. Just got some nerves, folks. I don't know. Maybe I need to. I know how we could fix it. Maybe I need to have a drink before going live. That could be interesting. Who knows what I may say? Maybe I better not do that. Maybe I better put this away. But let me tell you, this peach Jim Beam is dynamite. But don't drink and work the bees. Don't do it. Anyway, folks, that's why I haven't gone live. Just got a few nerves. I got to get my camera set up. And then I'm trying to work on getting this room adjusted with my background. Everything's kind of cobbled up. This is our extra room. We haven't really done a whole lot with it. Still got some drywall that needs to go back here over some insulation. I need to trim out this window here behind me. And little things like that, I guess, aren't necessary to go live, but deep down inside of me, they bother me that they're in the background and they're not finished. So it's just the way I am. I'm a nut. I don't know why. I think it's because Ladybug. She makes me nutty. Anyway, folks, any questions or comments about this week's video? Down below. If you enjoyed this video, smash that thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe if you have not. Yes, my tongue is very red because I have a holes in my mouth. So if you're wondering, why is his tongue so red? That's why. Thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate each and every one of you from tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Have a good week, folks. Appreciate you.